morning and welcome. We are going to get started in just a moment. Thank you all for joining us. My name is John Bueri, and I am the facilitator for Together for LA, but also the Deputy Director of the Dr. Lucy Jones Center for Science and Society. Today we have a great group of panelists to speak to you, to give you resources as small businesses that may have been impacted directly or indirectly by the recent wildfires here. We'll let folks join in. We'll begin in just a moment. We appreciate you taking time out of your day each week to join us to get the latest information. And today we've got some great speakers and updates from the SBA, the Employment Development Department, the EDD, and as well from LA County to talk about the LA Regional Fund for Small Businesses, which is a grant program. So we're excited to share that with you as well. As we begin here in just a moment, we are Together for LA is a coalition that includes many partners, including the LA Economic Development Corporation, the LA Area Chamber of Commerce, the Dr. Lucy Jones Center, the Institute for Sustainable Development, LISC LA, and others. And one key partner, and the county and the city of Los Angeles, of course. One key partner that I wanted to introduce all of you to today is the LA County Business Federation, BizFed. And joining us is Mitchell Vieira, who is one of the executive leaders of BizFed. We asked that they share a little bit about the work they're doing on behalf of small business in this moment around fire recovery and economic recovery. So Mitchell, can I turn it to you?
Great. Thank you, John. Hi, everyone. My name, like John said, is Mitchell Vieira, and I am the Senior Director of Government Affairs for BizFed. I run all of BizFed's advocacy operations. We really are a business advocacy group that focuses on policy issues across the board. So everything from small business to transportation to water and energy, workforce and economic development. There's just a wide range of different types of issues that BizFed tracks and mobilizes on and tries to advocate for the business community across not only LA County, but Southern California and at the state level and in DC. So what we decided to do after the fires happened and all the devastation that occurred, we made the decision that we were going to stick to our lane, and the work that we're doing is developing positions on state legislation and local ordinances that have to do with the emergency and the emergency response and recovery. And so we've been busy looking at laws and trying to determine what are the most important bills to pass, and in some instances, which ones are not so good for recovery in the business community. So we have work on both sides. We are still in the process of finalizing some of our positions on the latest speaker's bill package, and also on some of the other bills that have come out of Assemblymember Harabedian and Colosa over the last couple of weeks. And we will be making some final decisions on our positions in the next couple of weeks, and then going up to Sacramento and being a force multiplier and making sure that the voices are heard of small businesses and chambers and associations throughout LA County. I will say that if you are interested in getting involved with advocacy and business advocacy and trying to make a difference with our legislators and our supervisors and council members, then please contact us. You can contact BizFed and myself, or you can also contact your local chamber or trade association that you're a part of. We have 240 business organizations that are members of BizFed. Of that, there's about 70 chambers of commerces throughout LA County and Southern California that are part of BizFed. So most likely your chamber or your trade association or industry group is a part of the BizFed coalition, and you're welcome to get involved in BizFed through them if you're not a member on your own. So we really look forward to hearing from more of you and getting you involved in the work that we're doing. And we can provide some more information in the next couple of weeks on specific bills that we have positions on. So thank you, John.
Thanks, Mitchell. And we will share as those bills come forward and there's more insight. We'll share those here in brief updates on our weekly call. I also want to thank you, Mitchell, for being here and the partnership with Together for LA that BizFed brings through you and your colleagues. I also want to just acknowledge that the session is being recorded and will be posted on the LAEDC website through togetherforla.org. And so if there's anything you've missed or you want to get more information, you can go back and see that. Usually by Monday it's posted, if not sooner. And also, if you have a question during today's session, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll respond to them either via text right away, or we'll ask them live to our experts. I do see that we have, like I said, a number of experts. I want to turn for a moment to a couple key questions. I want you to think about, rather, the questions you might have for EDD, and that's the folks who do unemployment, disaster unemployment, and other forms of employee relations as small business owners or independent contractors. We have the deputy chief, I think if I've got that correctly, or assistant chief.
Close, deputy division chief.
Deputy division chief from EDD with us. And also we had some questions about some of the property and EIDL loans provided by the SBA. So we're joined by Sushil Kumar as well from SBA, and Anita Steenson, who is here to answer questions as well. I'm going to start us off with some of the carryover questions that were asked last week, because I want to make sure that we get some answers for you. First, I'm going to go to Ken over at EDD. Ken, we've heard from a number of small business owners curious about the impact to their UI rate if their employees claim unemployment, disaster unemployment during this time that they might be closed, or maybe their business can't reopen until it's rebuilt. Can you explain what the impact on the small business or the business owner is when an employee claims disaster unemployment?
Absolutely. There is some good news on this front. Because our disaster unemployment assistance program is funded differently, they do not require employer contributions, so that your reserve account would not be impacted if somebody files a DUA claim. And just for your knowledge, there are two other exceptions. If someone does file a regular UI claim and they quit their job due to either domestic violence or to preserve family unity, such as having to move away from the area, your account would also be relieved of charges. So the answer to that would be good news. That account would not be impacted by someone filing a DUA claim.
And a DUA is disaster unemployment assistance.
Correct.
It's a very specific program.
It's very specific, and it's primarily designed for those folks that don't normally qualify for regular UI. And you're right, it would be your small business owners, the self-employed, your 1099G, and I'm sorry, 1099R or G independent contractors, and so forth.
Great, thanks, Ken. And so as you're listening, if you have a question about unemployment or resources for employees through the Employment Development Department, please put them in the chat. I'm going to switch over to Sushil for a minute. First, I see there's a question in the chat, but I'm going to come back to it in just a moment. I want to ask you a question that has come up a couple times. As we all know, our small business community is still trying to recover from the COVID pandemic. And many of us took out EIDL loans at that time to help make things keep moving and keep operating during those very challenging times. And while things have somewhat stabilized into 2024, they may be carrying those loans on their book as they continue to pay them off over the next however duration of time. A question came to us last week that was, if a small business has an existing EIDL loan, number one, can they apply from COVID? Can they apply for another one from the impact from the fires, number one? And number two, could they use the loan that they get for the fires to help repay some of the COVID loan so they only have one? Or is there a consolidation? So there's a couple questions in there. Could you perhaps address that for us?
John, thank you for the question. What a real pleasure to be on this call to answer questions on behalf of the community. So any business owner, private nonprofit, and the definition of private nonprofit is any of those nonprofits that FEMA doesn't consider critical, homeowners and renters can apply for an SBA loan. To be more specific, if a business owner has a COVID loan and they're suffering hardship, they can always request a modification to their existing loan to help cash flow what their needs are. The sums of money that they potentially could qualify for cannot be used to repay higher interest rate debt. That's a huge no-no. And since we're a cash flow loan lender, going to second position, third position, fourth position, we're looking for overall debt coverage. And basically what it means is you've got enough revenues to pay the debt. And even if you don't have it now, we do historical analysis and we're trying to bring it back to par. That's the whole idea of economic injury disaster loans. The definition of economic injury, John, as you might appreciate, is the inability of the businesses not to pay their bills, which they normally were able to pay prior to the disaster, right? So our job is to flood the economy with subsidized credit, with interest rates as low as 4% to be repaid over a 30-year term. The money comes directly from the Treasury and is in most people's bank accounts usually within 30 days. The complexity of the funding is directly tied to the complexity of the borrowing structure. The simpler it is, the better it is. It doesn't mean that not all loans will be handled expeditiously, but I want to manage the time piece. When I say 30 days, it could be 26, it could be 36. Average time is 30 days. But thank you for the question.
Got it. And so the next question comes from Jeff. Is it true that the SBA loans over $50,000 must be secured by real estate, real property, and nothing else? Can a business be enough of an asset alone?
It's a very technical question that I don't want to be glib about and offer an overarching answer. On a case-by-case basis, the underwriter and the lending team will determine what's an acceptable source of collateral based on cash flow and many other scenarios. Given my commercial banking background, 28 years, I've been with the SBA now 14. That's not my age, by the way. 20 plus 14 is not my age. We won't go there. But bottom line is, in my commercial banking days, people would say, am I a slam dunk? You know, there are so many moving parts when it comes to lending. You don't want to say anything is a slam dunk. So my suggestion to the question that was posed by the applicant would be, give us a shot. I've seen situations where they took UCC1 filings against the business asset. They took a specific filing against inventory, against equipment, against real estate, so on and so forth. But the mindset is we want to flood the system with subsidized credit, and on a case-by-case basis, we'll consider other assets other than real estate.
Great, thanks. Let me go back to Ken. There's a question here from Alana that says, if you had to cut hours for employees in a nonprofit, are you able to apply for disaster unemployment? They said because we're a nonprofit, we don't pay into unemployment, but I'm not sure if a nonprofit's different in this space.
Nonprofits do have an option where they can pay into a UI fund, but it is purely optional. So the DUA program, again, is for those that would not normally qualify for regular UI benefits. I always recommend to my customers to apply because everyone's situation is unique and different. You might have someone, for example, that works at a nonprofit, but maybe they had W-2 wages that are usable for a regular UI claim. So the best approach always is to apply. The UI branch will then look at the eligibility requirements and the information provided. If more information is needed, they'll reach out to the customer, the claimant, as we call them, to obtain that and make an eligibility decision at that point.
Great, thank you for that. You know, if you have more questions for either SBA or EDD, you can put them here in the Q&A section. I do see some other questions unrelated, so I'm going to ask if they could stick around for a little bit, and maybe through the next phase of our presentation, other questions might come to you. They're here to answer those for you. But I'd like to now take a moment and shift gears for a minute and sort of, in many ways, address something that a lot of you have asked about around non-loan options. And so Layla Lee is one of the leaders of the LA County Department of Economic Opportunity, and she is one of the architects behind the LA Regional Fund for Small Businesses, or if I said that correct, or LA Regional Small Business Fund. And so we asked Layla to come and share a little bit about that program. That program just launched yesterday for applications. They've raised a lot of private sector dollars, and they put some public sector dollars in to have grant program for impacted small businesses. So Layla, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, John. Can you hear me? Great, thank you. So thank you so much for having me here today. And I'm excited to share that we just opened our LA Region Small Business and Worker Relief Fund yesterday. It will close around 5 p.m. on February 24, and you can access the application at laregionfund.lacounty.gov. Again, laregionfund.lacounty.gov. Right now, we're in the process of also uploading guidelines to help people apply step by step. And we have a bunch of TA providers, but I'll share more on other slides. Through this grant, what we're doing is providing grants of $25,000 for business that were brick and mortar business that were fully destroyed, $20,000 for brick and mortar business that were partially destroyed, and $15,000 for brick and mortar business that were that only incurred a loss of revenue through this period. Those businesses in brick and mortar business, they must be located in the zones, right? The warning zones, the evacuation order zones, and then the fire zones. The home-based businesses, we also have a set aside for home-based businesses and independent contractors. And so for those businesses, we're providing $5,000 for loss of revenue plus loss of equipment and inventory, and $2,000 for those that only have a loss of revenue. And in addition to that, we also have for workers, and that's $2,000 for those that were employed or self-employed that incurred a permanent or temporary loss of job. So some of the eligibility criteria that I want to share with you today, they must be financially impacted by the disaster that took place starting on January 7th. They must be headquartered within the boundaries of LA County. They must be operating, like I said, within at least one of the zones that we discussed. They must have less than 100 employees or have any revenue that's less than $6 million. That's the same thing for nonprofits. And for nonprofits is 501c3, C6, and C19. In addition to that, any independently owned business and small nonprofit must sell or provide services or products. So unfortunately, I know there are many of you who may own a property. Unfortunately, this grant will not be open to those that just own property or leasing a property to a business or a nonprofit. Those applying must be the owner of the business, or for a nonprofit, it must be its executive officer or president. And in addition to that, please note, you must be active, these must be active businesses in operation and in good standing. So we will be checking local, state, and federal taxing and licensing authorities as well. So some of the documentation that we do need is government issued ID, business license, most recent tax return. If you just open your business, during 2024, there are going to be other documents that we'd be asking for instead. IRS Form 941, unless you have 0 employees, then at that point we'll ask for, again, other documents, SSN or ITIN, EIN, DBA, and then any lease agreement or other documentation that's really providing us proof that you're actually operating a business in that location. In addition to that, depending on the business type, there's also the other documents, as you see on the right side, that we'll also be looking for. So in terms of proving impact, it's really up to the applicant to prove impact. Many times, if you have a business and you can prove that you're actually the owner of the business and your business is actually operating in the area that was impacted, that should be sufficient enough. However, there are times where some of you may not be exactly, it might not show that your business burned or was financially, it's not very apparent that it's financially impacted. So it's really up to the business to provide that type of documentation. It's not mandatory, but I do highly, recommend that you provide things like photos of damage, police reports, news clips, financial statements, accounts receivable, anything that can prove that you incurred revenue loss during this time will be helpful. For workers, it's much simpler. They just must be 18 years of age. They must be a resident within LA County. They must be employed or self-employed in LA County at the time of the disaster. And, in terms of financial impact, they have to have experienced impact on these zones as well, due to the place of work location being the zone, being closed, or maybe even, those that work from home or self-employed due to loss of their home, they can also apply for this one as well. Acceptable forms for this are government ID, proof of residency, proof of income or employment at a physical address, and proof of permanent disruption. So for those of you who might be not living in the area, not have a home business, but you're just having a lot of operations within the business, with that, you just have to prove that a lot of the work that you have, a lot of your income that comes to you is coming from the location itself that was impacted. One thing I wanted to note here, we have, if you go to our, again, laregionfund.lacounty.gov, you have access to many partners, including some that are here today. For businesses, that includes the County Office of Small Business, the county's economic mobility partners, LA City Business Work Centers, and I believe the SBDCs are also helping people out as well. You can get their address and their phone numbers and contact information by visiting this website. For workers, we have our America's Job Centers as well as our LA City Workforce Centers ready to support anyone that needs help. And what we ask is right now, please let your neighbors know about this, right? If you know a business that has been impacted, a worker that has been impacted, please let them know that this is something that we're looking for, to do. But in addition to that, if you know anyone that wants to contribute money towards this fund, we hope that, the number one question we get is, I'm not in the location at all, I'm not in the zone, but I also have been financially impacted. How can I get some money as well? Like, how can I get financial support? And my message to you today is the more we can fundraise, the more we can support. So please help us get there, but by spreading the word that we are fundraising as much as we can to make sure that we provide you the funding that you need. Upcoming, we have some webinars coming up. For the Small Business Relief Fund, it will be on February 11th. There'll be one in English at 5 p.m. and another in Spanish at 6 p.m. Pacific time. For the Worker Relief Fund, that will be held on February 12th at 5 p.m. for English and 6 p.m. for Spanish. And just as a last note before I go, please don't forget, we still have our B2B share space. Please share your space or look for a space in the area. It's very easy and very it's a really great opportunity for those of you to get connected with someone that can help you. And if anything, please contact our small business Office of Small Business for support. Thank you.
Thanks, Leila, for that great overview. Really detailed. We've got some questions already for you. Someone asks for sole proprietors that don't have the Form 941, what document is required in place?
Right now, it's going to be a self-attestation that you don't have any employees. And we're going to be focusing more so on your business license and any other documents that is required of a sole proprietor.
Got it. Great. We also had a question, and I think you answered it, but I want to go back to a question that Shayla asked earlier in the program around folks outside the zone. You sort of touched on it. Right now, the grant, just to clarify, the grant is only available for those in those 3 zones, either direct fire or the 2 stages of evacuation. What other resources can someone access if they're not in that zone right now that's available? Because I say right now, for everyone here, I know that there are a lot of conversations and a lot of other groups who are trying to provide additional support. But right now, if somebody's in the city of LA and Reseda and they needed some support, where should they go to get that help if they're outside the zone?
Yeah, I can say, we have several different programs and initiatives available right now, resources available. That includes legal assistance, for instance, right? Assistance navigating insurance claims and debt. And we have partners that are supporting with debt and credit counseling. We have partners that are supporting with financial planning and other, business planning and things like that. I think I would love to know what your specific needs are. What I recommend right now, go visit bit.ly/LA regional resources. is the one-stop shop that we kind of created with other partners. And if you look at the second page, there's several different resource providers that provide assistance. These are business consultants that can help you one-on-one and really address the specific needs that your business has. So whether it be financial planning or applying for a loan, they can actually help you do loan packaging or grant packaging, even applying for this loan as well. So anything, you may need. B2B space, share space is also available for everyone. So I want to say most of it is available for everyone. I think with the funds though, going back, John, it's just the fund is limited. So we just need to prioritize those that have been directly impacted.
Okay, there's a couple technical questions you might have the answer to. It says that there's a 30-page limit for their tax paperwork, but their taxes exceed that. What should they do?
The $6 million revenue.
I have a business that's applied and wants to upload their tax return. There's a 30-page limit and their paperwork exceeds that. What do I do? Okay,
why don't you email us at there's a number in the website. Let me get it for you right now, and I'll put it on the chat. But essentially, you can call the AKID number and the phone number, and they'll help you maybe give you an email address that you can send the rest to.
Right. And so AidKit, just so everybody knows, is the partner that's not administering the fund, but the application process.
Correct.
And so that seems like a technical question. What's the webpage Layla shared with resources? The webpage, she's looking for that number. The webpage she shared was bit.ly, that's bit.ly, /regional resources.
LA Regional Resources.
LA Regional Resources.
LA.
Sorry. LA Regional Resources.
Yeah, but in addition to that, let me give you the information that you're looking for, because the required documents, so you can call them. Let me just share my screen because I think that's helpful too, if you don't mind. So if you go down this website, the website that I shared earlier where the application is, and you go here, it does tech support, and there's a phone number right here. And this email is right here, support@lacbusiness.akid.org. And they can provide you technical, and this is really focused on technical difficulties or general information. And this is the website that I shared earlier. Small Business Fund.
We've gotten a couple of comments that the number that nobody's answering the phone, that there's no live number. Is there something where someone could talk to someone?
Yes, they're calling people back. I think we're getting more calls. I think because we just launched there, we're getting more calls than we have the capacity to answer, but they are calling people back one by one. So just leave a message and they'll get back to you as soon as possible.
It's just because of the overload right now. Okay, that sounds good. Just so folks know, there's estimations of more than 2,000 potential businesses, probably much higher, that have been impacted. So you can imagine that since this is just about 24 hours, this fund went live, the application, that the folks at Department of Economic Opportunity, they're doing the best to get back to people. So yeah, let's use the message, and they are giving people a call back. There's a question here about what about sole proprietors with no Secretary of State number?
Sole proprietors don't need to provide anything from Secretary of State.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that goes also for partnerships, because oftentimes partnerships don't have anything from the Secretary of State either. So those are the only ones that we don't require
it. Apparently there's a comment about the website being a little buggy, and like they have to keep resave. So maybe your team can look at that.
Okay.
How do you find out where the fire zone is? How can they find out if they're in or outside of it?
I'll go to recovery.lacounty.gov, and I can share my screen again just to show you how you can look at it. Let me share it with you, share my screen. So this is recovery, right now, and by the way, it does not have other fire zones, but nonetheless, the other fire zones also, they can also apply. So if you go to, for instance, Eaton Fire, let me just go to Eaton right now, and you go down here, you can actually see, and this is like a website that we are actually checking on the backside too. you know, where is this business located? What is the extent of the damage that occurred? So it will show you pretty much like the extent of the damage for each, you know, it will also kind of provide you like the photos of the damage, things like that. So this is something where we ourselves are using to kind of track the extent of damage. So someone in the red, that's on the red right here, a business, right? They will qualify for the 25,000, as opposed to somebody that's a different color between the green and the orange and yellow. They'll qualify for 20,000, and then anybody in the black, they'll qualify for 15,000. Hope that helps. But in addition to that, I just want to mention something here. This is just the fire zone. This is not including, there's also if you go to, we have other maps that's not showing here, but if you received a warning message, most likely you are on the, you are in the level 2 zone. If you receive an order to evacuate, which is like around this area, most likely you're on the level 2. So all of those folks all can apply. So it's a pretty big, you know, area that's surrounding the fire.
Layla, there's a couple questions in the chat that I want you to read, because I'm going to go back to SBA for just a minute. And it's about like the Secretary of State and moving forward, and I want you to read it through and see if you can get the answer that you need. But I want to go back to Sushil here for a minute. There was something about a phase. It says my daughter works for SBA to cover part that insurance won't cover. Maybe she's working with SBA, and so that's for a private homeowner. And is that a possible use, that SBA loans for a homeowner could be used to fill the gap of what insurance is not covering?
That's exactly the efficacy of our organization. Our program is for the uninsured and the underinsured. By definition, everyone on this phone call that has insurance is underinsured. And what's the definition of underinsured? No insurance company will ever give you 100 cents on the dollar. So we will cover deductibles, and we will cover the portion that the insurance company discounts for the damages, and the remaining amount is potentially eligible for us to lend against. Anita, do you want to add to that?
No, thanks. You're doing a great job.
Great, thank you for that. I'm going to go back to Layla. There's this question about they can't go forward without putting their Social Security number in, or Secretary of State number. Are you able to figure out, Layla, what's the best advice for those folks?
I don't think it's a number. Are they referring to like EIN number or Social Security number, ITIN number?
Yeah, Charlene says there's a field that requires that for the Secretary of State. So for the sole proprietor, should they just enter their Social Security number?
So that one, the way we kind of did it, if you're sole proprietor, we did it so you can move forward without putting the document in, Charlene. So please let me know if you're finding that they won't let you move forward. But it shouldn't. It should be optional. Okay, and Lily had the same question there. Charlene asks differently. This is a great question. There's an acupuncturist or any business owner whose home was a total loss, but his business operated in Pasadena is still intact. He did lose equipment in the home fire, and his lost his Altadena clients due to the fire. So it's a loss in revenue. So for the form, for the business address, should he put down his business address or his home address? This is a great question, because we haven't had anything like this. So because this grant is really supposed to help people that are actually working from a brick and mortar that's in this area, which you're not, right? And or a home business that's operating from their home, which it seems like you're not that either. It's just that you're storing some of your business property within your home, correct? I think that's what I'm getting from this. That's what it sounds like, yeah. Yeah, this is going to be I would recommend apply for the home-based business, unfortunately, because this is going to be a little tougher, just because I don't know how you would qualify. I need to go back to my team, but it'll be hard to make you qualify for this, just because it's really focused on the paperwork that you're providing, right? Like, where's your business license saying that you actually operate? And if it's saying that you're operating from a different location, I think that's going to be a little hard for us to track what people, yeah.
Great answer. And again, I think the idea here is if there's more information needed, will the grants team, are you gonna, I mean, this is a real question. If someone does it incompletely or there's confusion, do you kick it out and deny it immediately, or is there a reach out to get more information?
If it's incomplete, we don't accept it. They can't even submit it.
Okay. But if it's incomplete, but it's confusing to the processing team, they'll reach out.
They can, yeah, but we'll reach out if there's something that, we need to ask more questions. But typically what we recommend, because so much of it is done on logic, right? Like, I recommend that, reach out to a TA provider if you really need assistance getting the information that you need, because they also have access to those experts that are working through on the backside, so they can kind of answer questions. And by the way, I want to say this too. Our process is not perfect from the beginning. I think we're fine tuning as we go along. So all the questions that you're asking is very helpful. So we can also fine tune in the back end as well.
Yeah, we're getting comments that it's not letting them move forward without entering their Secretary of State number. So maybe this is something we could relay back to.
Okay. And you already put down as a sole proprietor, and they won't let you move forward. That's what you're saying, right? Okay.
That's what Lily's saying. Yeah.
We'll work on changes to make sure that we fix that glitch.
And the deadline is not for another week, right?
Not until the 24th.
24th, so 2 weeks or plus 2.5 weeks. So there is time. And if people put it in today, they don't get a priority over someone that puts it in next week, right? It's just open.
Exactly, because we don't think it's fair, right, for those that lost documents, for instance, or are not very technical, they're not very computer savvy to have to be on the back end. So don't worry about it. You can actually apply the last day and you'll still be considered, it will all be the same.
Can you run through what the process is if you know it? If you get, let's say you get 10,000 applications that qualify, that's a makeup number. Yeah. And you only have funding for perhaps 4,000 of them. How is that decision made? Is it based on need? Is it a lottery?
I love that you're asking that, because I think, we want to be very transparent. All the money that's been donated, pretty much, I think more than 90% is pretty much goes into this fund direct. What we're trying to do is direct support, right? Because that's where people need the most help, So the way we have done this, we've created different tiers. The first tier for brick and mortars, let's just talk about brick and mortars first. And then we also have a different tier for home businesses. But for the brick and mortar businesses, we created a tier where businesses that were fully destroyed will be considered first. If we have more money than, less money than number of brick and mortars that have been fully destroyed, then we will do a lottery based on, if otherwise, pretty much we feel like every business that can prove they're destroyed and, we can prove ownership and everything else, they will get a grant. The second tier that second, third, and second tier is really focused on the fire zone, the businesses that were not destroyed. So still fire zone, that's the second tier. Not destroyed, but they're telling us, hey, I'm still closed, right? Or all my customer base is completely gone now, right? So those are the ones that we want to support second. The third tier is focused on the evacuation order zones. And the fourth tier is focused on the warning zones, the evacuation warning zones.
So the money will go in those priority orders. If there's money left, it'll go to the next tier. If there's money left, it'll go to the next tier. If there's money left, it'll go to the next tier.
And what we're hoping to do, John, is continuing to advocate on the behalf of their businesses at the federal level, at the state level, and also to different philanthropic and corporate partners as well to give us more support. Because what we hope to do, right, that this is not just the first round. This is first round of many other rounds, but we'll see how much money we can gather together.
Great. And I know that Together for LA as a coalition is also advocating for folks to put resources into this fund because it's an essential component to our recovery for our small business community. There's an interesting question here, and I think you might have answered it, but I'd love to get clarity on it from Gary. He says he's a personal trainer in home to many clients in the Palisades who've now lost their home. So his place of work is gone, even though he didn't own it or have a lease. He has no clients and can't move forward with the application without an SOS number. So there's two questions I think that come out of this. Number one, where does someone whose work was in the impacted area, where do they put their address? Do they, as a contract with a client, enough to say that they were doing work there? If they were a landscaper, a pool technician, a personal trainer.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I want to say for the home-based business and the independent contractors, that's the only section that you don't have to actually live or have a business within the impacted area. So if you're a personal trainer and you have like, you're filing 1099s, right? Like, and you also have you can have some receipts that shows us that most of your clients are coming. Your financials shows that most of your checks that you have cashed or anything else like that. Any proof is really incumbent upon you to figure out like what are the documents that I can provide to show that my clients are all in the Palisades area. But honestly, we kind of left it open-ended because we know that it looks different for different people, right? The way you do your accounting might be different than the way somebody else does their accounting. So anything that you can do to provide as much information as possible, that would be great.
And then the second part of his question was, he can't get past the Secretary of State number as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That'll be my first thing to do as soon as I get out of here.
And there's some other.
Oh, that's a great
Okay.
suggestion, the vacant land.
Yeah. All right. I think those are the questions. There's a question from Elena. I'm not quite sure exactly. She says she's under the same EIN with the church. I assume she's another nonprofit. And so there's two different organizations operating from the same EIN number. Is there a way to separate, or would they really only be able to qualify as one applicant?
Yeah, and I want to say we even have some businesses that say, hey, I have two businesses that are operating from the same location. Unfortunately, it's going to be just that one business can apply. If you want, go ahead and apply for both businesses to see, which one kind of goes through, right? But typically, I want to say, the way we kind of designed everything, it's going to be 1 grant per business, per EIN or per, right? Like per owner, because we didn't want a place where people are operating multiple businesses in the same place to get multiple like grants.
Well, thank you, Layla. We're about to come up on time. Folks have more questions, you can put them in here. We'll have a couple more moments, but I did want to just acknowledge and thank our partners from the SBA, from the EDD, from LA County and LA City, obviously LAEDC, who hosts the webinar, and today's featured partner from BizFed. We will be back next Friday at 11 a.m. With updates on these programs and others as the weeks go on. If you have additional questions or need support, you can go to togetherforla.org, and we can connect you to the right resource through that. There's also a list of resources, other funds as well that are made available on that page as well. And so I know that one of the big takeaways from the county and Layla's team is to fix this Secretary of State roadblock that seems to be popping up for sole proprietors. And so I know they'll be working on that. Is there a way, Layla, that we can communicate back? We do have an email list for everybody who registered today. If you could get that answer to us, and then if I could ask maybe Lyndon or the folks at LAEDC to just let them know, hey, if you're a sole proprietor, this has been fixed.
Yes, we can do this by tonight. We'll get it fixed.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we will be back again next week. Thank you so much.